cautionary tale. That's what I'm calling this video, the cautionary tale, why the streets is a myth. I did a video, posted a video the other day on my IG. You know, the beginning of this video, you're gonna see, you know, Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas, having a, you know, conversation. Basically speaking about, you know, the street code and how it's a myth and how they break it down. And the way they break it down is so official that you can't even hate on the breakdown of the video, because it's like the way niggas is speaking about certain shit. It's like you gotta respect it, because let me just say it like this, right? The streets is just a joke, man. When you really take a look at it, niggas is holding on to codes that they don't even stand for, don't even live by. You know what I'm saying? A nigga will want you to be stand 10 toes down, but he ain't standing 10 toes down. You know what I'm saying? So it's like dudes stand on a myth. You know, they don't stand on the officialness of what the street code was intended. See, the mob niggas had rules and guidelines that niggas had to obey. You know what I'm saying? Fucking a nigga wife was a violation. Selling drugs was a violation. But, you know, later in life, you gotta understand.
I expected them to look out for her. And I expected them to take care of her. I didn't expect them to start fucking her. You know?
Yeah, but
you feel, wait a minute. Nick, you feel better, man. That's over, man. That's water under the bridge, Nick.
You know?
That's water under the bridge. You know Godfish was a punk. I know it and you know it, so I mean, what the hell? What did you expect out of fucking punk?
I expected him because what I was asking to do was just a small thing. Because he had women of his own. He had women who were as attractive as mine. I don't know why.
No, he didn't.
I don't know why he had the bonus, and then I don't know why the other council members let him live after they knew he did it.
But Nick, we talked about that cancer thing a long time ago. I told you it wouldn't work. Somebody want to be Carlos Gambino, another guy want to be Matty McDonald, another guy want to be Al Capone. That don't work. What you got to do, if you're going to make it work, you got to kill half the son of a bitch. You don't want it to kill nobody.
What do you think about that,
you know?
Nick? You think he's right about that?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I'm right. You don't know my butt. You know I'm right.
You got any remorse about what you did, Nick? You think it was...
No, man. No. You know, at one time, I had two thoughts of mine about it. You know, but then when I realized that them niggas that left me on the battlefield to die, you know, niggas just gonna jump the wounded. You know, I just said, no, I'll pull them motherfuckers in here with me. I'll pull them in here with me and let them see what it's like. No, I don't regret that. I would rather be out here than to be in there with them. Why would I want to be with them kind of niggas?
You're right.
That, you know, and then there was a show on CNN and hosted by Anderson Cooper. And Anderson Cooper, there was a thing on they were talking about don't snitch and don't do this and don't do that, and that no matter what happens to you, you can't tell. Well, I can't see how a guy can be considered strong if you let a bunch of motherfuckers just dump on him and walk all over him, and he doesn't respond to help himself because of some code that a bunch of idiots have cooked up. So this guy came on Anderson Cooper, and Anderson Cooper said to him, well, you got shot. How come you won't tell the police who did it? He said, well, I mean, if I tell the police who shot me, then I won't be able to go on stage, and I won't do this and that and the other. Well, in other words, he was saying that there were consequences. If there were no consequences, then he might do it. So then the whole staff said, well, suppose a child was molested, and you knew who the child molester was. Would you tell the police? He said no. that's what I'm saying. The street guidelines are just bullshit. Some people use for their own convenience.
What do you think, Frank? Do you believe the street guidelines are bullshit, or I mean, do you think there's a time in which it's good to cooperate?
Well, listen, let me tell you about that. I told you before, I never took the stand on nobody. Let me explain to you.
Well, there's some cases were made, Frank.
I don't care what
some
this is.
cases
Let me
were
explain
made.
to you. There you go. There you go.
It's not just
I can't get it. Yeah, listen, wait, hey. Who am I talking to, you or him?
Yeah.
No, but I can't talk to both of you at the same time. One got the time, please.
All right, just talk to me.
What I'm telling you is right now, yes, I have some remorse about what I did.
Like talk a little slow. Can't hear you.
I said, yes, I have some remorse about what I did. I have remorse in this sensibility. I never sold nothing to a kid in the street, but I found out that my people had sold something. I don't want to sell kids in the street. I don't want to see them jungle. I don't want to make them jungle. I don't want to be a part of it. But during my time, I couldn't get a job on Wall Street washing toilet out. I went to school 3 days and the teacher wasn't there 2 of them. I had to make a living. I didn't want to be out there down bumming the street. I could do better, and that's what I did. I went my way and I did better. But I don't, yes, I have some remorse about what I did on the way, and on the way I don't. Because when you get there, yeah, everybody, every rat out the goddamn woods gonna come running at you. They're gonna come running at you hard. And that's what they did to me. Every time I had the money, all with that. When you ain't got no money, tell them, Nick, everybody disappear. Tell them, Nick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like Louis George said, if I ever get my hands on the dollar again, I'm gonna squeeze it till the eagle grins.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody here but us chickens, man.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
He's the greatest, man, Louis George.
He's a monster,
Tell nobody, don't play me cheap. I got 50 cents more than I'm going to keep. You let the good time roll.
Hey, Frank, let me ask you this question.
You got it, Nick. Guys.
What happened to, do you know how Jimmy Terrell died?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, I hear they set him up. They thought it would have been like a $60,000 deal. And Jimmy bought the money with him. And they killed him when they killed him to get the money. It was a setup. It wasn't for real. They killed him just to get the money from him. And Goldfinger loved everybody. Goldfinger was a good man. You know he didn't deserve nothing like that.
Yeah.
You see, the thing that's funny about this is, like, most people think that you guys were competitors and you hated each other, but it seems like you guys were buddies. Is that so? What is the case here?
As Nick, I was a good friend of Nick.
We were competitors. But we were competitors. But see, I'll tell you what a lot of people don't understand. See, in a lot of times you read in the paper about people having shooting wars about turf, but both of us operated in that 16th Street area. But the more people out there, in other words, if only one of us had powder out there, every time the police came out, they would be able to surveil out that one group. But there's a lot of people out there. Mike Powder's out there, Frank's is out there, and somebody else is out there. Then the more the merrier. It's like a shopping mall. It's like a shopping mall, and the more people out there dealing, the more that the police got to disperse their energy.
There you go.
Concentrate on one person.
There you go.
Good.
So let me ask you one thing. I mean, like, did you ever think, both of you guys, did you ever think that, like, there'd be this whole hip-hop thing with all these guys writing songs? I mean, you guys have both mentioned 1 million hip-hop songs.
No, when I came along, you had to sing. It wasn't none of that bop stuff. I got a son of that bop stuff. It wasn't none of that. When I come along, you had to sing. Nat King Cole, Aretha Franklin, well, not Aretha Franklin so much, but she was kind of young. But people like that, way back in the day, you had to sing, man. You couldn't get that.
I know, but you didn't think they were going to make songs about
Duke
you,
Ellington
right?
and jazz and stuff, huh?
You never thought people were going to make songs about you, did you?
Well, good luck. They must have liked me a lot. They're making songs about me.
What about you, Nick? I mean, you're like a folk hero or something like that.
No, I never thought anything like that. That they would be. Well, when hip hop first started, everybody, all of music entrepreneurs predicted that hip-hop would be dead in 5 years. And these guys hip-hop started with guys selling those 8-tracks out of the back of their car.
That's right.
Right.
That's true.
That's how it started out on the island in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. These guys and the big record groups, they ignored them. They said, them motherfuckers ain't gonna make no money. But hip-hop just rolled along, and look what they're doing now. You got Jay-Z, you got Damon Dash, you got Kanye West, you got, you got 50 Cent. All of these guys are
at least you know the names.
And they're riding on and they're doing something legitimate.
Nick, at least you know the names. I don't know half of them names. I tell you, this guy, Puffy Coin. You know who his father was, right?
Oh, I didn't hear.
Puffy Coin. You know who his father was?
He's talking about Puffy Coombs.
Puff Daddy.
Puff Daddy. Yeah, his dad was the
Puff Daddy. You know who his father was?
Oh, Melvin Cole.
Yeah, that's exactly. He used to make Melvin. You know me and Melvin.
I remember Melvin.
Me and Melvin, his mother. What his mother was named? What his mother was named, Nick? Isabella or something like that?
I think it's begins with a Z.
Julie, don't do that, man. Yeah, but then
What is this?
wait a minute, let me tell you. Melvin used to bring me over to my house about every day, a couple of times a week at least. And my daughter had one of those little rocking horses. She wouldn't let him ride on it. She used to push him out the White House. I said, look at him now, he can build that ride off $1 million bills.
Yeah.
That guy got rich, man. He did good, man. I'm proud to see him out there like that. That was Melvin Combs' son.
I just saw him the other night.
I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he went on. I pray for this kid, man. He doing good.
I just saw him the other night when I went to see your movie, Frank. Hey, Nick, are you curious about how you're portrayed in the American Gangster movie?
How is he portrayed? I don't know.
Well, Cuba Gooding plays you, and you got some scenes. I mean, are you looking forward to seeing it, and you were looking forward to Frank seeing the movie about you? I mean, it'd be interesting to see what you guys have to say after you both see the movies.
Well, he got my phone call. He'll call me. Got my phone number. Nick, Denzel Washington did more than a good job. He did a hell of a job out here.
Yeah.
There ain't nobody out there in the world as good as Denzel. He's the best in the whole world.
What do you want to have on your epitaph? I mean, how do you want to be remembered? Like, what do you want your legacy to be? Maybe both.
They used to have the jams at, where they come and do, okay, say this Saturday, they gonna come and jam there. Flash and all them gonna come jam there. All that he talking about the Chuka, we all used to be out there at the jam. Go from different projects.
18-4.
Yep.
But they didn't go in the park. They were outside on the street.
No, not when they had the jam. The jam was inside the park.
Inside the yard.
Yeah. The jam was inside the yard. But the hustlers was on the benches outside. All them people he talking about, all them people was on them benches. Like I say, when them people got
Mecca building.
when them people
Four benches out there. That's all it is.
when them people got popped, these are the people that move it.
Oh,
to
when
their
Nicky
side.
Barnes and Guy Fisher got popped?
Because Billy Bang and that same man Chino, I told you, all of them was out there with them. They was like
They was working with Guy Fisher.
Yeah, they was like they little lieutenant.
They was Guy Fisher lieutenant.
Yes. So y'all going now, we the captain now.
They taking over.
Yeah.
But that was Nicky Barnes and Guy Fisher territory.
Yeah. They was the head people out there. That's how that went. In that park.
So Nicky Barnes came up one point, he came across that bridge.
Yeah, because Nicky Barnes used to hang with Guy Fisher. They grew up together as kids. All them was friends.
Nicky Barnes was on 143rd, 140th.
Right, but he realized.
You know Nicky Barnes?
I think I met him with
He realized that you could make money right there in the project. He knew the money was right there. That's why he did. Let me go and get these cans for myself.
And then Uncle Wallace lived 139th, and I used to be on 40th Street. So I probably saw, I see them talk about him. I know I saw him, but I've never introduced.
Yeah, Dan said he knew him real well.
He lived there with his uncle.
Yeah, Dan told me he
He
knew
grew up
him.
138th and 8th Avenue. His uncle lived on 138th and 39th.
Yeah, Nicky Barnes was the big man, Dan.
He was the big man,
He was a big man in Harlem. He ran all the numbers. You had to wait to get the numbers from him. The Italians in the Bronx used to wait for his call. I know
Yeah, he ran
my
Harlem.
mother.
he ran Harlem, but then they snitched him out.
They
He
did.
ran Harlem and they
And
got
when they snitched him out, that's when these people took over.
Italians took over in
After
the
the
Bronx.
people took over,
The Italians.
they still was
But you
doing
know
their
what?
Billy
thing.
Bang and all them took over.
They took over and they had like that same guy I showed you was on the train with us.
Yeah.
Stephen Hill, Benjamin, them other.
I know that.
Right, Stephen Hill, Benjamin, what was that other guy? Herbie, Tracy, Sam, what was that other guy named Cutler that lived on the other side, used to be out there. That other guy used to be out there. Cutler, Derek used to be out there. From up there that had all the brothers, them skinny brown skin brothers that lived on the on Willis Avenue side. Or them, no, 3rd Avenue side. One of the brothers used to be out there. Who else used to be out there? Another guy used to be out there with them.
Childhood cancer. Visit this website
Cutler.
or scan the QR code with your $19 monthly donation. Join with your debit or credit card right now, and we'll send you
Terry used to be out there.
you can proudly wear to show your support.
And what that other guy name was? One other guy used to be, all of them used to be lined up on that bench. I can't think of that other guy name. But all of them used to be, they was under them. Under Chino and Billy Bang. They the one took over from them
God,
people.
fishernicky.
Yeah, they was the mans in charge, and all of them, those guys I just named was up under them. And then after that, the younger kids start getting out there, but by then, we had them move. The other kids, which is like Nita Kelsey's.
Oh, talking about Charlie Rock, little Charlie
Yeah.
Rock.
Them came out. Oh yeah, his father was out there. His father and what's that other guy's name?
It's not just a snowfall. Not
That
just a snowfall.
dealt with that lady's son. What was his name? That dark skinned boy that lived in 271. Oh God, what's that boy's name?
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, her son used to be out there. Her son. I can't think of his name right now. He was out there. All of them that I just named and that boy, I can't think of his name. He was out there hustling free. These was all the people, younger kids, like around my age, was out there hustling.
What?
Yeah, but her, is it Charlie Rock, his father?
So sudden.
Charlie Rock is Nita Kelsey's son.
We're not about to have the we need life
But this
insurance
boy you
conversation
talking
again.
about,
I can't think of his name, but he was one of them was out there hustling too.
you from 271.
So you're
271.
calling about the 995
His mother and I went to
But they was like the teenagers
Jeannie is her name.
now hustling.
Yeah.
They was like
That's like
13,
Troy, you know, a little
right.
crew.
13. Troy was out there a little bit with them, but then Troy went to the Manhattan and
Oh.
was doing his thing. That's how he know Richard Porter.
Yeah.
Because he went to Harlem and hooked up with Rich and was hustling with them. But like I said, Rich Porter never used to hustle. He used to do the other things, groceries and things like that. But then he got turned on. Somebody told him, yo, you could do this thing, and he, how you say, manifest the game, the craft.
Yeah.
And when he manifests the craft, he put his boys on
Yeah.
and put everybody on.
Yeah.
So everybody was eating the food. All of them had motorcycles. All of them had dirt bikes. They was wearing minks and furs when people wasn't wearing minks and furs. This girl had minks and furs. She the first person I saw had a mink vest. Remember that mink vest Londa had?
Yeah, that's Yvette's sister. Londa is
Cedar's sister.
Jerry's woman.
Sister, that ain't
Yeah,
their sister.
no, she was always with him.
Yeah, Popeye and them. Yeah. So that's how that went. But he used to be over there. Because there was so many of them right there.
18 Park.
Hustling.
Yeah, he spread out to Harlem.
He went into Harlem, crossed the bridge, because all you had to do was
walk over the bridge.
Right, 149th.
Yeah.
When you get crossed, you're on 145th.
Yeah.
Walk down to 40th Street. Where they in that park.
You right there, you walk on 138 too. You go
138
Street, same bridge.
You go on 138.
You off Fifth Avenue, 138. You walk across the 8th, 7th and 8th.
You by Harlem Hospital, you go that direction. You go across that bridge. Right by Harlem Hospital.
And 155th.
And then if you go over on the other side, go across that bridge. You on 55th Street.
Hey, Nick, you broke the golden rule. And I'm saying, what good is a rule if the rule ain't a jewel that's fit for the crown of a king? If you're going to take the rule and just use it to make bling, and you're going to say, fuck the king, then the king going to sing. I think my information resulted in maybe 75 or 80 felony convictions. They have a place in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary that they call it the Nicky Barnes range, because all of the people up there were people that I gave up.
James, I'm calling from Otisville FCI prison in upstate New York, and I'm doing life without parole plus 40 years. I've been down 23 years and 11 months. The worst thing that the government or whoever did it could have done was name him Mr. Untouchable.
11 other people were found guilty of drug sales and conspiracy. Today, Steve Ballman was in the courtroom when Nicky Barnes and 2 other defendants were sentenced.
Whenever he's come to court, even the day he was convicted, Barnes has worn the same icy look, revealing no emotion whatsoever. So it was today as his attorney appealed for leniency, reminding the judge that his client had been acquitted on 3 of the charges, although he was convicted on 3 others. Barnes himself stood and claimed his innocence, maintaining that he never even spoke to the 3 people who had testified as the government's main witnesses against him. U.S. Attorney Fisk then told the judge that the proof had been convincing and overwhelming that Barnes ran the most profitable venal heroin ring in the city, and that he should receive the harshest sentence possible to show others that narcotics is not the quick and easy road to riches. U.S. District Judge Henry Worker agreed. He said Barnes' past record of arrests, even though convicted only once, showed he'd been skirting the law for years and that he represented a great danger and threat to the city. The sentence, on the charge under a recent law of operating a continuing criminal business, life imprisonment without any built-in provision for parole. A $120,000 fine was also tagged on. Barnes hardly blinked, although there were gasps from the spectators. The defendant then shook hands with his lawyer and was led away. 2 others, convicted as Barnes' top lieutenants, received sentences of 30 years each. Outside the federal courthouse, defense and prosecution attorneys spoke briefly with reporters. Mr. Breitbart said that there were many grounds for the defense to appeal. Foremost was that the defense team had been denied any personal knowledge about the potential jurors.
The strongest issues so far that, and this is just in a cursory examination of the record for the last month since the trial, and we have much more time now to litigate the entire appeal, going to revolve around the anonymous jury question. the misconduct of jurors. I don't know if you gentlemen were aware, but during the course of the trial, one of the jurors did give the finger to the defense lawyers, and there was no questioning of the juror with regard to what motivated him to do something like that.
I really don't want to get into any detailed discussion of the arguments on appeal, but we're satisfied that the judge's ruling on each of those issues as it came up at the trial was entirely proper.
Do you believe this sets a problematic precedent in regard to having anonymous juries?
I would think that in the future courts would use that system very selectively. And it sets some sort of a precedent, but I really think it's up to the courts to decide in what kind of unusual cases that kind of procedure is appropriate.
Barnes once did successfully appeal a conviction after serving 5 years on state charges. His attorney says this is the first case on record in which all information about the jurors was kept from the defense, and he believes the chances for an appeal are very good. But as it stands right now, Mr. Untouchable is behind bars forever. The prosecution hopes it will serve as a deterrent. Narcotics cops here say the Uptown heroin supermarket is just as busy as ever. This is Steve Bauman, Channel 5 News.
Busy as ever in this city is a $5.5 million a day business, the way police average out the megabucks of dealing dope on the wholesale level. The truth is, no one knows for sure how much money or dope is being dealt in the city. It's not a business that publishes annual reports. But for people like Nicky Barnes, it's a very sound industry indeed, with a population of hundreds of thousands of heroin addicts, most of them clustered in areas like Harlem, Bedford-Stuyvesant, and the South Bronx. Manhattan dope deals from 59th Street to the tip of the island are also the business of the detectives who occupy the 4th floor loft of the old 32nd Precinct House. Even though it took the resources of the federal government to put Nicky Barnes away, city narcotics detectives have had several dealings with Barnes, none of which have ever ended well for the cops when they got their cases to court. None of the officers in the Manhattan North office today had ever personally worked on a Barnes case, nor were they particularly moved in any way at the news of his sentencing, nor did they think the sentencing will deter the others who deal dope at the executive level.
There are some 50, 60 other aspiring Nicky Barneses out there that feel they could aspire up to that pinnacle. They also feel they're smarter than he was and possibly won't even get caught.
And, but seeing one of them get caught, Nicky Barnes, does it make you feel good?
Yes, it's nice to see the kingpin get caught and convicted, yes. It's gratifying.
One narcotics detective put it this way: with Nicky Barnes going into the slammer for an extended stay, someone is certain to try to move into his spot. It could be handled as an amicable business deal and we'll never know about it. Or, if it goes wrong, we won't know about it until we start picking up bodies. Bob O'Brien, Channel 5 News.
What's the good of having a lot of money if you don't have any real friends? You've heard that before, often by preachers in Sunday sermons. So it was very unusual to hear that today from a man who used to be Harlem's biggest dope dealer. But that's what Nicky Barnes was saying. John Miller reports he was also talking about a former friend, Nicholas Sperling, now on trial for selling heroin.
For the second day in his life, Nicky Barnes continued in his new role, government witness. His job here in federal court giving up information on his former associates. During the trial today, he went on to describe the activities of the council, 6 major drug dealers, and himself, that allegedly ran the most profitable heroin trafficking ring in Harlem. After Barnes implicated his former partners, a prosecutor asked him why he decided to cooperate. Barnes began by saying he told his wife and his girlfriend to stay away from members of the council. He told of phone conversations he had from jail in which he learned that both women were running around with his old buddies. Barnes went on. He said that he started to think about his friends and about his life. He spoke of the millions, the drugs, snorting coke and driving Mercedes. And then Barnes reflected from the stand that his whole life evolved around the dope and the money, and that none of his friends liked him for who he was, but for what he was. Barnes said everyone, even his lawyers, had double-crossed him. When he was finished, the prosecutors did not ask how many murders Barnes had ordered or how many deaths he was responsible for indirectly by pumping hundreds of kilos of heroin into the streets and schoolyards of New York. At the end of Barnes' soliloquy, lawyers for the government and the defense rose to say, No further questions. There's been a lot of speculation about what Barnes will get out of the deal, what the payoff will be from the government for turning witness. But you have to bear in mind that Barnes came to the government this time, upset with his former associates for allegedly running off with his wife and girlfriend and cutting him out of the deal. Barnes could conceivably apply for a pardon from the president. His lawyer is not optimistic about that. He hopes that Barnes will just get better treatment as he spends the rest of his life in jail. John Miller, Channel 5 News.
Leroy Nicky Barnes was perhaps Harlem's and one of the country's biggest drug dealers. He sported the fur coats and fancy cars that marked his success. At 45, he was known as the Untouchable because the law couldn't seem to lay a hand on him. But today, he was sentenced to life in prison, presumably now stripped of his hero's garb in the underworld. Barnes is appealing his conviction.
Nicky Barnes go free. Leroy Nicky Barnes, who for 7 years in the 1970s was godfather of the largest and most profitable heroin-selling operation in the history of New York City. Between 1973 and 77, Barnes was arrested variously for homicide, bribery, drug dealing, and gun possession, but none of the charges stuck. He became a Harlem legend and very rich, and whatever he had, he flaunted, be it women or Rolls Royces. But in 1977, suddenly Barnes was busted, convicted of heroin dealing, and sent away for life without parole. Then 4 years later in prison, Nicky Barnes turned government informant and began to tell all he knew. And because his testimony helped put 50 other people in prison, there are those in government who say he should be pardoned. Among the people he informed on were his former drug colleagues and his women. How did he feel testifying against them?
I was overwhelmed by guilt. I was overwhelmed by guilt. I had every reason to testify against them and no reason at all to feel guilty. But it's that street corner indoctrination, that criminal ethic, that street corner value system. It's overpowering. And I started crying on the stand.
From guilt. And emotion.
And emotion. I couldn't talk.
Barnes testified about his secret 7-member drug council, composed of the most successful black heroin dealers in New York, some of whom attended this birthday party for Barnes in the middle 70s. According to Barnes, they shared an oath of brotherhood and loyalty to one another.
The oath of brotherhood was 7 words. Treat my brother as I treat myself. To treat my brother as I treat myself. And there was a certain mystical dynamic present when we said it.
You ever kill anybody?
No.
Had other people do it for you?
I guess that would best describe it, yeah.
These pictures of addicts and dealers were taken by police at the time Barnes was kingpin. Between 1973 and 79, when Barnes operated, more than 2,100 people died in New York City alone from drug overdose. And according to the DEA, most of those deaths were caused by heroin supplied by Barnes' organization. He paid his street sellers not in money, but in heroin. And since many of them were addicts, that ensured an active and loyal sales force. But in 1977, Barnes, who had been arrested 13 times on various charges but never convicted, was indicted once again. What was his reaction to this latest indictment? He posed for the cover of the New York Times Sunday magazine. They called him Mr. Untouchable. Among the interested readers that Sunday morning was President Jimmy Carter. The former U.S. attorney from New York who prosecuted Barnes was Bob Fisk.
I got a call on Monday morning after the Sunday in which that article appeared from Griffin Bell,
the Attorney General.
The Attorney General, who told me that the President had read the article and had told Attorney General Bell that he felt that the case we had against Barnes in the Southern District of New York was the most important case in his administration, because as he read that article, he felt that this case was a classic test of whether our criminal justice system works in this country.
1 year after his indictment, Leroy Nicky Barnes was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. It was while Barnes was in prison that he suspected that the two main women in his life, Thelma Grant and Shemeka, was sleeping with his former business partners, thus violating the code of honor that he says existed on the street.
Thelma was a very attractive woman. And in New York, there are several million eligible men. Now, I told her that we have a hands-off policy to about 20 of them. Now, the other 4 or 5 million that are out there, you do your own thing. But you know, try and be discreet with whatever it is you decide to do.
From prison, Barnes would call his former friends on the street collect, and through them he was able to have Thelma Grant followed 24 hours a day. The trail soon led to a drug dealer named Tito Johnson.
So I called one of my buddies, you know. And he said, yeah, he said, Nick, he said, yeah, she was on 7th Avenue. In your Mercedes, in your white Mercedes. And he said, I didn't even see him. They called me to the car. He said, Tito called me to the car because he wanted me to see that he had your woman. And Tito was driving my cars. Oh, he never had a foreign car. He was a Buick Oldsmobile man.
And that began to eat on you.
Yeah.
And that eventually led to that call to Bill Tendy.
Yeah.
William Tendy is executive U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. The call to him was made by Barnes from the Terre Haute Federal Prison in Indiana.
Tell me what it is you have in mind.
They were a couple of friends of mine that were supposed to be doing things for me, you know.
Yeah.
And well, they're doing things against me, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no way to reach out to get to them, and I want to get back at them, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's my primary reason.
Were you surprised that he was going to do it?
I was surprised that a person like Nicky Barnes would do it, but when I ultimately found out the reason why he was doing these things, it made sense to me.
How important was the information?
I think it was terribly important.
In that?
I think it was terribly important because it resulted in the conviction of Barnes as the hard core of Barnes' entire operation.
See, the thing that held me together was my values. And I was tied into the criminal ethic, the street corner values that I had, the oath of brotherhood, the warmth and loyalty that I thought flowed between council members or among the council members and myself. That was gone. I mean, the whole thing exploded.
Was there a drug council?
Oh, the drug council is a myth. It's the first time I heard of council was when I was in court in 1983.
Guy Fisher, who had a brief affair with Barnes' former girlfriend, Shemeka, was a member of that 7-man drug council, according to Barnes. Fisher is now serving life without parole after Barnes testified against him.
You mean to tell me that you can give someone a life plus sentence because you said he had sex with my girlfriend?
And he's putting people behind bars, helping to make cases for the feds.
There is no justice in terms of that. Ah, man. I mean, 8 years ago, Nick was the scum of the earth in terms of court, being in the courtroom in Judge Worker's court. And then 3 years ago, he became Robin Hood because he was telling. It's really sad, you know. I'm laughing, but it's sad.
Though Barnes says now he began to talk against his former drug associates like Fisher out of a motive of revenge, it soon became apparent that freedom was mostly on his mind. And since Barnes knew he could only be released through a presidential pardon, he understood that the government wanted more from him. So he testified before the President's Commission on Organized Crime, wearing a hood, telling the commission about drug operations in New York. And Barnes began to snitch on his fellow inmates as well. Inside prison, Barnes learned about illegal activities that he described to prison authorities.
I'm a bookmaker, and right now on camera I want to lay you 9 to 5 that Nicky Barnes, Leroy Barnes, gets out of jail.
New York gangster Herbie Sperling spoke with Barnes when they were in prison together in New York, and they worked out a drug deal at Barnes' suggestion that eventually resulted in the conviction of Sperling's son.
I'm doing the same sentence that Nicky Barnes was doing.
Life without parole.
Without parole. I've got it the longest in the country. It's worse than a death sentence. A death sentence, you're dead and life goes on. Here you linger, and sometimes people get depressed. Now, some people get so depressed that they decide to make up a story.
You think he's going to get out?
There's no doubt in my mind. The government has to let him out. This is part of their propaganda ploy. What they're saying is anybody that wants to get out, just make up stories about a lot of people. We got plenty of room. We got a lot of prisons. We'll replace them with you and we'll let you out. No matter what you did, no matter what you do.
For Barnes' cooperation, he has now gained many supporters in the Justice Department who want to see him eventually released. One of those is Rudolph Giuliani, now U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, whose office prosecuted most of the cases that resulted from Barnes' testimony. We talked to Giuliani in front of Jagazy's in Harlem, a former Barnes hangout.
I think he should be given credit for his having cooperated with the government to encourage others to come forward and cooperate and bust up these operations. Essentially what should happen with him, in my view, is at some point he should be permitted to be released from prison. At some point.
We talked to old pals of his who are now in Lewisburg prison. They said, listen, he's a snitch. He'll be on the street in no time. They really believe that the only reason that he did it was not because he got religion, but because he wants to get on the street and that you're going to help him do just that.
I think that the realistic situation here has to be that when people turn in, organizations like this account for 50 people being convicted. Everyone he's testified against has been convicted and their cases have been upheld on appeal. There has to be some reward for that. That's the only way we can combat this kind of activity.
In fact, the Justice Department has rewarded informants in the past with freedom. Jimmy the Weasel Fratiano, who personally admitted to committing 9 murders, served a 21-month sentence and is now free, though a protected witness. Gary Bodak, who admitted to carrying out 1 gangland murder and attempting 2 others, became a federal witness and was placed in the Witness Protection Program. He was never prosecuted for the murder. And Frank Lucas, a major drug dealer, informed and was released from a life sentence. Within 3 months of his release, he was arrested for heroin possession and sent back to prison. Again, Bob Fisk, the former U.S. Attorney from New York, the man who put Barnes away.
Should Nicky Barnes have his sentence commuted? Should he get out of prison for the help that he has given the federal government?
I would be opposed to that. We sent a message, we thought we sent a message that no one is above the law. We sent a message to those kids in Harlem that we're putting Nicky Barnes on the same level with Reggie Jackson as a role model. Mr. Untouchable is not untouchable, and there is no future for you in drug dealing. And I think it undercuts the significance of that conviction of that man for everything he did if 8 years into his sentence he is now put out on the street.
One of the people who knew Barnes best during the days he was heroin kingpin was his attorney, Dave Breitbart. It was Breitbart who defended Barnes in the 1970s as a drug dealer and is supportive of him today in Barnes' new role as a government informant.
You know, Barnes was a bad guy. Barnes has gone through a metamorphosis. If they made the rules that someone should benefit by becoming an informant, no one has done more, no one has created more cases, no one has put more people in jail, and has done it with a degree of integrity and with a degree of honesty from what I read.
Is Nicky Barnes going to spend the rest of his life in prison?
If the government doesn't cut him loose, I think they're crazy. There's no reason. He's played their game by their rules. He fought them, now he joined them.
Do you think that you should get a pardon after all the pain and misery that you caused?
I think that I deserve some type of relief, because it's customary. I don't see why policy of the Justice Department should change because of Nicky Barnes.
If they let him out, Barnes says, he would like to teach the young about the dangers of drug addiction. Were he to get out, he would have to remain in the Witness Protection Program, guarded for the rest of his life by the U.S. Marshals.
Running it down on these niggas. Sex, drugs, money, and murder, my nigga. You know how we did it, my nigga. Still be painting them bitches, my nigga. Ripping that roll and fucking your bitches. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. 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 Niggas, they never will hurt you. Niggas, they never will hurt you. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. How the traps right, understand how to get that. Ran down on them niggas with a flip back. Knew I never seen none of nigga live like that. I was still getting stacks back. Had to fuck around getting them packs back.
As part of that whole indictment, the first indictment, Nicky, if you look at his first case, you know, Guy Fisher brother and Jazz Hayden was doing business with the CI and Agent Diaz. And this is how they both got in trap. But if people look at it like this, if dudes would have kept it official with Nick, I think the brothers wouldn't have did all that time. And if you really look at that case and you really look at it for what it was and you break that whole case down, the man went to jail for niggas being greedy, you know, and he had rules and guidelines that niggas did not obey. Just keeping it all the way real with you. When people look at it, you know, when Nicky went to jail, everybody, you know, because, you know, Pistol Pete and all them, Pistol Pete, Pops, Senior, you know, Tito, James Jackson, Tito Jackson and all of them, you know, that whole organization, it sprung off of the council, you know, where, you know, they was fucking with Mark Ryder and, you know, Gene Gotti and all that. So, Nicky had the connections with all these dudes. And a lot of them dudes that was under him was doing their own thing, his nephew and all of them. And it got more and more violent. And they went out, they trained, they took the organization all the way. Nicky Barnes. Let me just say this about Nicky Barnes. And let me just say this about Frank Lucas. But mostly Nicky Barnes. I want to get on Nicky. But I'm going to say this about Frank. Frank Lucas, in my opinion, most niggas that say what Frank Lucas did was honorable. He told on crooked police. But then you got a couple of niggas that say, well, he violated the code. He snitched. So this is why I always tell niggas, they pick and choose who violated and who did this and who did that. You know what I'm saying? But they don't stand on them principles that they preach. Because if you feel a nigga violated the street code and he did something that you felt that was a violation, by telling on police officers, you gotta let that be known. Because when y'all dudes talk about the street code, niggas shouldn't tell on police. That's what you niggas be screaming. Nah, don't tell on police, don't do this, don't do that. Keep it in the streets, keep it gangster. So we're sending mixed signals and mixed messages. And that's why I say, like, some of y'all niggas, a lot of y'all niggas will say Frank Lucas did something honorable. Some of y'all niggas will say he told. Me personally, I think a lot of niggas tell. It's only 62% of niggas that stand firm and stand tall. The 99% of them is low key, gonna flip or got they shit, you know, tore up. So they had to do a whole time. Yeah, it's something like that. But nevertheless, I'm gonna keep it real. You know, because, you know, I always keep it real. And we gotta keep it official. When it come to Nicky Barnes, and it really come to him, Nicky was the king of the city. I remember hearing stories about Nicky Barnes when I was a little young nigga, right? You know, a lot of my older cousins knew Nick when he was a fiend, when he was shooting up dope. My grandfather knew Nick very well. Been in his crib in the Bronx. He had a spot. He had a crib in the Bronx he lived in. Plus he had a crib in Jersey where him and his wife lived. But he had like an apartment in the Bronx. And he had these people come from Italy and they did his apartment, put marble floors and all that. They did his apartment real lovely, real beautiful. Grandfather told me the story. But Nicky was what I call a smart dude because, you know, he was around the Italians. He was around Matty Madonna, you know, Joey Gallo. You know what I'm saying? And being around Joey Gallo, he got the read a lot of great books like the Prince Machiavelli, Art of War, stuff like that. So when he came in the streets, they always say when you go to prison, you get vast of knowledge being in prison. You gain a vast of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of niggas was affiliated with him. You know what I'm saying? You know, a lot of niggas. We talking about Jerome Harris. You know what I'm saying? We talking about Bat. You know, Puff Pops, Melvin Combs. You know, he had like a whole bunch of niggas. You know, Ricky Dukes. You know what I'm saying? You know, Guy Fisher. A lot of niggas come under that Nicky umbrella because he was a dude. The next dude I say that was like semi-next to Nicky was Freddie Myers. Freddie Myers, who was really respected New York Freddie. You know, Pee Wee Kirkland. You know, them cats right there. You know, Nicky was Undisputed King because his connection with Detroit, you know, Atlanta, Philly, you know, him and the Black Incorporated. He had ties with them. You know, cats in Jersey, cats upstate. Because a lot of people think that Nicky, his whole council shit was just New York City. No. He had ties with a lot of people, you know, out of town too, you know. And he's a respected dude. He was a respected dude. His presence was what it was, and he was not to be trifled with. Like a lot of motherfuckers, he was not to be trifled with, and he was respected. You know what I'm saying? He ran his organization real tight. But what really, I would tell people, what really got Nicky caught up, in my opinion, it wasn't even Nicky that got himself caught up. It was really, if you want to be technical, it was really Jazz Hayden that got Nicky caught up, because Jazz Hayden at the time, you know, was doing business. Him and, you know, Guy Fisher brother Wiley was running around doing business with a confidential informant. And when it comes to Nicky, you know what I'm saying, you know, Jazz Hayden, he died, you know, R.I.P. to him, you know, because he was doing a lot of impactful things in the community, I'm going to say. You know what I'm saying? He was doing a lot of things on an activist level. You know, my condolences go out to Jazz Hayden, you know. But let me say this, though, right? What a lot of people don't understand is, right, is that Nicky went to jail, you know, not because of him, but because of what happened with, you know, Jazz and them being greedy and doing business with Agent Diaz. Now, you know, Nicky had a strong crew of associates and allies in the streets, you know. Like I said, you know, he had dudes like, you know, Small Paul, Bat, Jerome Harris, you know, Pistol Pete, Pops, you know, Peter Rolock Sr., you know, Melvin Combs. You know, it was so many guys, Black Sunday and all of them. You know what I'm saying? It was so many guys affiliated with the council, and then they having their ties with the Black Incorporated in Philly, Sam Christian and Ron Harvey and them, Bo Baines, you know, and them, you know, being the strongest crew of men, you know, because you got to remember, you know, Frank James wasn't Nicky's means like that. If you ever read his book, if dudes ever read his book, in the book, he talks about him and Frank James having beef. How Frank James was, you know, basically, you know, was a fiend, but he was a stick-up guy. You know, he was a stick-up kid. Nicky was always known for being a hustler. You know, even when he had kicked his habits, he was in the drug game. You know what I'm saying? He was in the drug game heavy. You know, so he was a known hustler in the game. And he put a lot of those dudes that were stick-up guys in into the money. You know, Legs, who is Tupac's step pops. You know, you heard about Legs. You know, that was who Pac thought was his real biological father. He was a part of the council, Legs. You know, he was like, I think he was like third or second in command of the council. You know what I'm saying? And they was a strong movement of men that, you know, Nicky was he was ahead of his time. You know, he was pushing out with the Ferraris, pushing out with the Maseratis, the Bentleys, the Rolls Royces. You know, he'll tell you, I wasn't a Buick guy, but he was a foreign whipper. You know, he was driving a lot of foreign cars. And, you know, he was Mr. Flashy, you know, wearing Gucci and Armani suits, and, you know, he was, you know, Burberry trench coats. You know, that was his style of dressing. You know, he was a fly dude. And a lot of dudes idolized him, you know what I'm saying? Because he was a generation before the Zips and the Bill Underwoods and the Preachers. You know, all them dudes, they come after Nicky. You know, and he was the head honcho of Harlem. You know, he was that dude. You know, and a lot of cats, you know, when it goes to what he did, yeah, he did go out. And a lot of people look at it, well, Nicky went out bad, right? Well, if you really look at it, you know, if dudes would have killed Tito Johnson, and dudes would have killed, you know, Guy Fisher, Nicky probably would have never did what he did, because he felt like they could deal with any woman in the world, but you dealing with my side piece and my wife? You know what I'm saying? That was the thing that really, like, made him do what he did, you know? And a lot of them guys, you know, that was in the game, you know, the Freddie Myers, the Jesse Grays and all them guys that was in the game, Pee Wee Kirkland and all them, you know what I'm saying? You know, they respected Nicky for, you know, when he did what he did, but when he did what he did, cooperated, you know, it made dudes feel away. But you gotta look at it like this, right? Nicky, and I'm gonna keep it real with you, right? Even with the Shemeka situation, a lot of people said that Nicky was playing the fags and that he because he was still in contact with his nephew, you know, and his nephew, you know, was, you know, Jerome Jackson and all of them, and how they was so, that whole Jackson organization was so ruthless. Like, they was like next level to what Nicky and the council was, you know. And when they killed Shemeka, he laid it on, his nephew laid it on, testified, you know, on everybody. You know, he testified on everybody. You know, after he got caught and all of them, he just went sour and turned and told on the whole organization. But when this shit happened, you know, when the shit happened and niggas was getting murdered, and, you know, when Shemeka got killed, you know, Nicky and them, if you really want to be technical, you know, Nicky and them they felt the way they felt because, you know, the mob did what they did. But in the streets, what I was told from my older heads was that Nicky lined Shemeka up. First he lined her up with the drug deal, but he also lined her up to get killed in the motherfucking, in the spot, in the bar she was in. Because when Son came in there and shot, you know, he made sure he killed her, you know. he had a white man, a white hood on his head, and came in there and killed Shemeka. You know, shout out to the B139. They about to interview son Raymond Clark. That's gonna be a good interview. I want y'all to go check that out. But what a lot of people don't know is that, you know, Nicky and James Jackson was the ones that told on Ryder and Gene Gotti. You know, because Steve Ash, Shemeka's brother, had got murdered, and they killed him right after they killed his sister in '83. You know, and, you know, Pistol P Pops was even involved in that same case. You know, and it was a real crazy case because you know, that whole case had a lot of dudes in it. You know, Angelo Ruggiero, you know, Pistol Pete, and they was connected. They had a whole like situation out there in Connecticut. You know, they had a whole thing out there in Connecticut, and that whole case was just, it was wild. You know, and James Jackson, you know, he got in the game, and it was him and Nicky really made, like, fuck them niggas up. You know, they really fucked them niggas up because the whole case was that when they caught the case in 88, 87, I think it was 87, 88, the motherfuckers just let it loose, you know, let it loose. And they basically took over. What a lot of people don't know is the Jackson organization was the Nicky Barnes organization, the council, but the only thing difference is that they renamed the organization. So instead of it being the council, it was the whole new organization with Clark and Jackson, you know. And they basically was like very vicious. They wasn't taking no prisoners, you know what I'm saying? And you're gonna hear it from Clark on the B139, where how Romeo and Jackson was just, they was slaughtering shit. You know, that whole, like, cause Nicky, like, when they took over in 80, 79, 80, they had a good run, cause Nicky and them was like, when they snatched up got fishing them in 82, 83, they whole organization from 79 all the way to fucking 87, 87, they wasn't playing, you know what I'm saying? They was laying shit down. They had fucking Connecticut on lock. You know, they had Harlem on lock and they had the Bronx on lock. They was the big dogs, you know, and they was fucking with the Gambino family, you know. And the fucked up part about it is that, you know, a lot of people don't understand that Nicky, while he was in jail, he was still talking to his nephew. You know, he was still talking to his nephew while he was in prison. You know, and Romeo, who is Nicky's nephew, you know, was still letting him know what was going on in the streets. And when what happened to her happened, Shemeka, you know, Nicky and them, you know, Nicky was like vengeful. But a lot of people don't know is, I'm gonna keep it real with you, Nicky had his hand in that. A lot of people say no, he didn't, but he did, because in violation, she violated, Thelma violated, because he felt that it's one thing, like he said, he had rules. It's one thing to deal with all other different men in the world, but you don't deal with people that I got close ties with. He had close ties with Tito. You know, Tito was like family to him. You know, was considered his nephew. You know, and he had close ties with Guy. You know, Guy was like his little brother. You know, so he thought that, you know, they could be with any woman in the world. But respect, and I could understand Guy's point of view too, because Guy, like Guy said, he paid for the funeral of his mother. He was bringing gifts to his mother. He was taking care of his family while he was incarcerated. So I can understand Guy's plight, and I can understand Nicky's plight. You know, I think egos, greed destroyed the council. I think that destroyed that whole movement on a Shakespearean level, because what's the rule? Like Nicky said, what's the rule if it ain't a jewel? And you have to really listen to that, because it's like, well, you can't kick a nigga back and disrespecting him, because he made all you niggas filthy rich. If it wasn't for Nicky bringing all you niggas together, you dudes would have still been street hoods. Y'all would have never been to the level that Nicky took a lot of y'all dudes, because you gotta look, Nicky took them to higher heights. This is an organization that was started with this man being a mastermind, learning the game from Maddie Madonna and Joey Gallo, and Joey Gallo putting him on the books like The Art of War and The Prince by Machiavelli, and he's sitting there in prison reading these books, and he's coming out with a different type of mentality and more strategic than he ever was. And him having, you know, the game sold up, a lot of cats wasn't as intense, and you had a lot of players. You had Goldfinger, you know, you had, shout out to Spanish Raymond with the numbers, you know, you had Frank Matthews, you know, you had Pee Wee Kirkland, you know, Ronnie Bump and Pop Freeman, you know, in Queens. You had cats like you had cats like you know, I spoke about Goldfinger, but you had dudes like Pee Wee Kirkland, you know, Freddie Myers and his Good and Plenty crew, Jesse Gray. So you had so many players out there, but Nicky was stood out because of the flashiness, because of how he moved, but how he put all these brothers together. You know, this dude put a lot of brothers together and put these cats together and made a movement where everybody became successful. The council, like he said, treat my brother as I treat myself. So he wanted them to treat the brothers like they were supposed to treat themselves, not to be greedy and do the shit behind the scenes that they was doing and sleeping with one brother's woman, and you know what I'm saying? It becomes a violation now when you do that and you don't respect the orders, because the boss is still gonna be the boss, just like in a mob. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the Lucchese family, right? No, the Colombos. When the Colombos was going through the wars they was having, and Persico was in jail, they didn't go against Persico word. You had Persico loyalists, and you had loyalists of Vic Arena, you know? And that's just how it is. But in Nicky's case, he didn't have loyalists. His loyalists went with Guy. They went with Guy. Guy was keeping the show running, so they went with Guy Fisher. They said, you know, it's whatever with Nicky. We getting money. And that's what made him upset, because really and truly, he was in jail because of his council members. He was in jail because of Guy Fisher and Jazz. Well, not really Guy Fisher, but Guy Fisher brother, which, you know, was doing business with the CI and Diaz, Jazz and him. God bless the day. So they was doing business with dude, and basically he felt, hold on, the jury was supposed to sway his way and not just sway God's way. The jury swayed in God's way. He felt a little distaste, but he did his time. He stood in there because he'd been to prison before, so he did his time. But the thing was, guys in Apollo with Shemeka, you know, Tito's riding around in his whip with Thelma. So it rubbed him the wrong way. And you gotta understand, Nicky was making a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? He had spots. He had a harem of side pieces, and he was getting to the bag, and he was pushing in, and like I said, in the foreigns. You know what I'm saying? I've heard stories. Like I told y'all in the beginning of my video, my grandfather tell me stories about Nicky with the crib in the Bronx where he had the Italian niggas come in and put the marbles on the floor. Him ride around on Rolls Royce. You know what I'm saying? He was balling on the next level. Like what these rappers be talking about, living large like Nicky Barnes. Yeah, he was living large, you know? And he was the movie star of the hood. And a lot of cats was so envious of dude that they didn't want to, you know, they wanted to, it was like the king is gone and you know, he gonna die in this box. So we gonna do what the fuck we gonna do and forget about what he talking about. We gonna continue getting money. So in his mind, he felt, okay, y'all gonna move like that. Y'all not gonna listen to my orders. Y'all know I put all y'all to the money. I put Frank James. I put you to the money. I put you to the bag. You know what I'm saying? You was out here sticking niggas up. I took you from sticking niggas up to bringing you into a boss position. And you telling me that you ain't gonna knock this nigga off? Okay, no problem. With them saying that and him feeling the way he felt, everybody coming in here. And that's what happened with Nick. He's like, everybody coming in here, everybody sitting down. Ain't nobody gonna enjoy this. You know, and that's what happened. So, you know, Shemeka caught the brunt of it. Thelma caught the brunt of it. During the time when before Shemeka got killed, she had a case, a pending case, because she sold to undercover a deal that Nicky set up for her. You know, her brother, Grego, used to work for her brother, Steve Ash, you know, and he was a respected young nigga in Harlem, getting to it, you know, and he, you know, he caught the brunt of it too, you know, and the mob did what they did. But, you know, the truth be told on the street is that, you know, Nicky was playing both sides of the game, you know, and it's vicious when you could play when you could have the feds. You can play the sides of the feds and you can play the sides of the streets still. Because when Shorty got knocked off, a lot of motherfuckers in the street said that he sanctioned that hit on Shorty. And that's what I was told. My old man told me. He like, listen, grandfather, me and him had a conversation. He said, yo, they violated. When Nicky made that order, they were supposed to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because Nicky put everybody onto the money. And everybody had to feel it. And in that situation, Shorty had to feel it. And her brother felt it. Everybody went to jail. And then, you know, like I said, that whole Jackson organization was just the spinoff of the council. Because that's all, because a lot of them was under the council. So what they did was they took what happened with the council and the Gambinos, they was doing business already with them. They started doing business with the Jackson organization. And then, you know, everything that happened, Nicky, like he tell you, man, everybody sat down because what he did was writer and all of them went to jail because Nicky testified on that case. Also, he testified on the Jackson organization case, and Jerome Jackson also told in that case. you know, and that was a nasty situation, man, because the thing with Nicky is that he was a street legend, and he was the dude that Harlem just loved him. They looked up to him. Everybody wanted to be Nicky Barnes. You know, the rich porters and all them little niggas that came in Harlem when he was like the nigga that was the nigga in the 70s, man. Everybody wanted to be him, you know, because he was the go-to. He was the trendsetter, you know, because he set the trends in Harlem. And he's Loon. A lot of people don't know that he's Loon godfather. A lot of people don't know that Nicky Barnes is Loon's godfather. People don't know that or not, but that's Loon's godfather. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of your favorite rap stars, man, a lot of your favorite, the Puffies, the Tupacs, and the Loons, a lot of these rappers, man, their families was affiliated with Nicky. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Legs, who Pac Dor was his biological father, was down with the council, was Nicky's right-hand man. You know, Melvin Combs, who's also affiliated with Nicky, was down with him. Loon, his mom's, who was also with the council, you know what I'm saying, was affiliated with Nicky. And Nicky, like I said, is his godfather. You know, and Nicky just had a lot of, like, you know, if he didn't do what he did, but I understood it. And it's like, it's fucked up because it's like, nigga, he ratted, but it's like, it's like, it's like certain things when you really take in hindsight, when you really look at it, it's like with the Sammy the Bull situation. It's like Sammy didn't have to do what he did, but because the feds manipulated Sammy the Bull, it happened the way it happened. You know, if he wasn't manipulated in that situation, you know, he would have did his time. And if they didn't play the recording, but that's how the feds play. And then the guy Fisher and Nicky situation was, them niggas knew he was vulnerable, but what was vulnerable about it was that he knew that he didn't have to do that. But why he did what he did was because if somebody is having sex with your woman, and these is niggas that, you know, basically got you jammed up in the situation and was supposed to have one thing that really would rub them the wrong, like I said, would rub them the wrong way, is that Guy Fisher and both of them was supposed to be cleared in that case because they really didn't have anything on Nicky Barnes because he never did dealings and did business with the Fed. You know, he never did business with Diaz. It was mostly Jazz and Wally, who's Guy Fisher's brother. They the ones that did the business with dude. But because they caught them, you know, and it was under the Nicky Council movement, he went to, you know, he got found guilty, and he felt that the case, the jury was supposed to acquit him and Guy Fisher, not have Guy Fisher mistrial and him getting a guilty verdict and getting sentenced to how many times he got sentenced. So that was what really, like, rubbed him the wrong way. It's not the same as the Gotti and Gavano situation, because in that situation, Gavano was manipulated by the feds. The Gotti situation was a totally different thing. But in this situation, with this case, with, you know, like I said, with Nicky and all of them, was that Nicky was basically, he felt that he got played the first time. The second time, it's like, okay, y'all wilding right now. This nigga's with my girl. I love Shorty. And the third time, it's like, okay, Now y'all playing dirty. I got my wife now riding around and nigga ride around in my car. Y'all not doing nothing. Okay. So he felt that, okay, y'all violating me as a man and as the king. And when the king feel that his spot is being taken, it's always in the laws of 40 laws of power. Never outshine the master. Whether you feel like you better than the master, never outshine them. And that's what happened. And, you know, here's what it is. Your boy Bullet Scotty, salute.